Welcome, sleepless spirit. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to guide you gently into the shadows of slumber, where dreams take over and worries fade away. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more bedtime tales, whispered just for you. Let me know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it as you listen tonight? And if there's a story you've been longing to hear, something spooky, something comforting, tell me. I'm always listening. Now, tuck yourself in. Let the darkness wrap around you like a warm blanket. It's time to let go and drift into the story. Everything happened when I was 18. Years later, I still find it impossible to discuss it without my hands shaking. I had therapy and medicine, but the dreams persisted. They made it dull for a while, but every now and again I wake up sweating and hear his voice in the darkness. I was a freshman in college at the time, barely making it. Rent was harsher, tuition was harsh, and I worked part-time at a campus coffee shop. Didn't even pay for food. The majority of the time, I went to bed hungry and looked up at my ceiling, wondering how I was going to survive the semester without going bankrupt. I grabbed any side job I could find because of this. Errand running, snow shoveling, and lawn mowing. Of all the jobs, babysitting was the simplest. I could study in solitude while the kids slept. I was intrigued when Ryan, a man in my accounting class, indicated that his dad's buddy was in need of a sitter. He mentioned it as we were packing up from a study session. "Hey, Matt, you still looking for some extra cash?" "Always," I chuckled. "Why, have you got a present for me?" The salary for a weekend babysitting assignment is $200 each night. I went cold. For babysitting, $200. Ryan grinned. "Yes, 2 children. Simple money. There must be a catch," I remarked, squinting. He paused, then laughed. "One of the children isn't really a child, though." "What are you saying?" "He's perhaps 24 or 25 years old." "What?" I chuckled uneasily. "Babysitting isn't that. That's what it means to hang out with a guy for money." "Not precisely. He's unique." Ryan spoke more softly. "Daniel, the oldest one, he has the mental capacity of a 5-year-old. He needs medication and monitoring, but he is not hazardous. Since most people can't afford it, his parents pay a good salary." I tried to think while I looked at him. "He is hence harmless," Ryan gave a shrug. "Safe enough. He spends most of his time watching cartoons in his room. Make sure he doesn't do something foolish, please. Give him food. Before bed, give him his medication." To be honest, the younger child is simpler. Typical 8-year-olds spend their entire day playing video games. I chewed my lip while I considered it. In a week, the rent was due. $400 for tonight's at $200 per night, possibly more, if they left a tip. I managed to stay afloat with that. I think Ryan noticed my hesitancy because he went on to say, "If you don't want it." Later that evening, the dad texted me, "Send me the number," and I grumbled, "I'll give the number to someone else." Michael was his name. They needed someone from Friday night till Sunday morning, he explained. Cash up front, tonight's, and meals provided. Daniel, the eldest boy, was unique and required medicine before to bedtime. The younger son, Lucas, was laid back. I concurred. I reminded myself that it was only a job. Friday night arrived quickly. Michael gave me the address, so I took an Uber there. About half an hour's drive from university. The house was located in a peaceful neighborhood, white shutters, blue siding, 2 stories. It appeared safe and typical. The door opened before I could knock, and a man I thought was Michael shook my hand firmly in greeting. Karen, his wife, was standing behind him, grinning courteously, but with a nervous expression, as if they were already running late. "You mean Matt? Thank you for coming so quickly," Michael added. "No problem," I replied. They dragged me in. The house was immaculate. Actually, a bit too immaculate. There is no mess. and the only toy on the couch is a shabby teddy bear. This is Lucas, Karen replied, indicating a child who was playing video games on the floor of the living room. Hi, he muttered as he glanced up and returned to his game. Michael stated, and Daniel's upstairs. He sounded as like he didn't really want to go into further detail. I looked up at the stairs. I briefly believed I saw movement at the top, a person standing right outside of sight. After a pause, Karen added, Daniel is shy, but he will get to know you. I was given to 20s by Michael. If you need pizza money, it's on the counter. And near the sink, in a white pill bottle, is his prescription. Before going to bed, make sure Daniel takes 2. That's crucial. You understand. Tucking the money inside my pocket, I said. Then they were gone almost too soon. Their farewells were hurried and nervous. I dismissed it and left my bag at the visitors' quarters. The initial hours went smoothly. Lucas hardly acknowledged me as he continued to eat chips on his PlayStation. As I prepared a sandwich for myself, I saw a row of family pictures on the counter. Mom, Dad, 2 boys, and a 3rd child in some older photos. A 12-year-old boy with his arms wrapped around his brothers and a big smile. Strange, a 3rd child was never mentioned by the parents. Lucas pointed at the photo when I asked him nonchalantly, Hey, who's this? He didn't look up from his game. Max. He was my older brother. Did he pass away? The word lingered in the atmosphere. I'm sorry, I muttered. Lucas stopped playing his game, looked at me, and then returned his attention to the screen. What happened? It was the dog, they said. Claimed that our Rottweiler killed him by biting him. They got rid of it for that reason. Jesus. Lucas, however, lowered his voice. It wasn't the dog, in my opinion. I scowled. Then who? His gaze strayed to the stairs. Daniel. I took a swallow. Why would you say that? Because I despise him, and he is a pampered monster. Lucas, why do you discuss me? The voice, strong, deep, and almost childlike, emerged from the stairway. I pivoted. Daniel hunched somewhat as if his own body were too large for him. Despite his height of 6', his hair was untidy, and his clothing were loose. It was difficult to read his face. Something that wasn't quite a smile curved his lips. I said, Hey, Daniel, with caution. My name is Matt. It's good to meet you. No, it isn't, he stated bluntly. Liar is your name. No, I swear, Matt is my name. His voice reverberated down the corridor as he abruptly yelled, You liar. You don't believe me. You believe him. I believe you, Daniel, I hurriedly answered, attempting to seem composed. Daniel gazed at me. He mumbled to himself as he stomped back upstairs after a prolonged period of his chest rising and falling. Forcefully, told you. Lucas grinned weakly. The remainder of the evening was tight. Daniel continued to shriek gibberish while hammering on his walls. I could see how Lucas flinched every time, even though he claimed not to care. I put Lucas to bed at around midnight and went to the guest room. Daniel's door was cracked open as I walked by it. His eyes and face emerged in the void, broad and unwavering. And I whispered, You need anything before bed? Yes, he said in a whisper. I want you to bring me a cup of Lucas's blood. I was frozen. My lips dried up as I said, What? And if you don't, I drink yours. Daniel, that's not funny. He slammed the door after smiling slowly and twistedly. That night, I locked my door. I checked my phone after waking up to a loud bang in the hallway. 1:47 a.m. 100 of Michael's missed calls and texts. Messages such as it's crucial that Daniel takes his medications before bed. Oh, God. With my heart racing, I sprang to my feet and opened my door. Daniel stood with blood all over him. The walls of the corridor behind him were splattered red. I can still see it in Lucas's room. There were fragments of him all over the bed. He lost his face, as if an animal had torn through him. His chest ripped open. The wet sheets leaked onto the ground. Daniel simply stood there grinning, his fangs and hands oozing blood. He muttered, "You didn't give me my medicine." I therefore had to play my part. I took off running. After that, I don't recall much. The police lights, the metallic smell of blood that stuck to my clothes 4 days, and the screaming into the phone they took Daniel was gone that evening. Later, Michael informed me that they had recognized his worsening condition. The medications were crucial because of this. Never again did I babysit. I also swear that I can still hear his voice outside my door on some evenings when I wake up in the dark. Liar is your name. When it occurred, I was 17. Additionally, the memory still clings to me like it has never left whenever I pass a grocery shop. People assume that you scream, fight, or flee when anything dreadful occurs. However, that is untrue. The worst part is that sometimes you just freeze, caught between reason and panic. I had just graduated from high school at the time, and I was overwhelmed by uncertainty. While everyone else was talking about their majors and dorm life, I was clueless about college. No plan, no job. My folks didn't pressuring me, but I felt bad because of their fatigue from lengthy work weeks. I then began doing errands for them, in order to assist. Little things like picking up dry washing or going grocery shopping. The least I could do was that. It was just another Saturday night. A brief grocery list was texted to me by my dad. Cereal, canned beans, milk, eggs, and a few snacks. He responded, "Take my card," and tossed it to me before going to bed in preparation for an early shift the next day. When I grabbed a hoodie, put on my old sneakers, and left the house, the sun had just set and the street lights had just come on. The neighborhood supermarket, which I had visited numerous times, was 10 minutes. Distant on foot. It was comfortable and familiar, or so I believed. The typical weekend crowd was in full force at the business. Couples arguing over which pasta sauce to buy. Elderly people with carts full, and families with screaming toddlers. I snatched up a trolley and began pacing the aisles, idly checking things off the list. The speakers hummed softly, and for a few while everything seemed normal. It happened after I had the thought, maybe I'll grab some ice cream for later. Just a normal thought on a normal day. My cart collided violently with another as I turned into the canned goods section. A few heads turned at the metallic clang. "Oh, I'm so sorry," I blurted out as soon as I looked upward. I felt intimidated by the man in front of me. Middle-aged or older, heavy-built, with a round beer belly. His deep-set eyes glared at me through heavy, cracked prescription spectacles that, to my horror, were now shattered on the floor, and his disheveled beard appeared to have not been trimmed in months. With a gravelly voice, he yelled, "Damn it." I sincerely apologize. I hastily muttered, "Sir," and squatted down to retrieve the glasses. One lens was split all the way. I felt sick to my stomach. "Take them here, please." I didn't intend to. He grabbed them out of my grasp, checked the damage, and exhaled sharply. "These are no longer useful. Without these, I can't even see my own fucking hands." His voice changed, now quieter, almost pathetic. How on earth am I going to make it home, in this state? Unsure of what to say, I froze. "Would you like me to make a call on your behalf? An Uber, perhaps?" He tilted his head slightly as he gazed up at me. "Did you come alone or with your parents?" The query felt strange. I took a swallow. "Oh, I came by myself." A small smile that didn't extend to his eyes curved his lips. "How did you get here? Bus, drive?" I tried to speak steadily as I said, "I walked." He spoke slowly, though. "To get home, I'm going to need your assistance. This is not how I can drive, not without my spectacles, however." My heart skipped a beat as I blinked at him. "I don't own an automobile, sir." He lowered his voice and leaned in. "Do you own a license?" "Indeed. After that, you will operate my vehicle. Bring me home to get my extra pair. I'll bring you back after that. Easy. I thought he must be kidding, so I laughed nervously. "Well, kid, perhaps I could just give you a ride." His voice became piercing. "I don't entrust my car to strangers." My blasted spectacles were broken by "you" once more. I froze. I felt a wave of guilt and uneasiness. He gave the impression that I was now in charge of it. I was so impressionable at the age of 17 that I thought I had no other choice. I nodded slowly in defiance of my instincts, yelling in my mind, "All right, just quickly, isn't that right?" His expression softened into a sort of relief. He said, really quick, with an almost uncomfortable smile. I saw what he purchased as we were checking out: numerous formula cans, diapers, and baby bibs. That gave me some relief. Perhaps he was just a stressed out father. I dismissed the disturbing thoughts, telling myself that this was a wonderful thing to do. Greatest error of my life. The night air felt thicker and colder outside. He led me to a dark automobile that was parked close to the rear of the lot. His groceries and mine were placed in the rear seat. There was a slight smell of stale sweat and something else I couldn't identify in the automobile. His fingertips brushed mine as he handed me the keys as I moved into the driver's seat. Clammy and cold, even though the travel took only 10 minutes or so. It seemed like hours, only until he asked, did the heavy stillness break. "What are your plans for tonight?" I blurted out. Just dropping you off and heading home." He gave a quiet laugh. "Would you be willing to watch my son for a short while? You damaged my glasses, so I have to run back for more food." I gripped the wheel more tightly. He cut him off, saying, "I can't really. I'll give you $100. The law of money was strong. My folks need the assistance." He also had a sound that was nearly desperate. "Okay, just quick," I responded, defying all common sense. "All right." I felt a knot in my stomach as we arrived at his house. An outdoor stairway led up the side of the ancient, painted structure. The door was barely lit by a faint, flickering light. It had an unsettling appearance, resembling the type of setting seen in crime documentaries. The smell reached me first inside. It was rotted and mildewed as if it had died weeks ago. I started to cry. He appeared to be unaware. He remarked nonchalantly, "My boy's in the last room to the right, most likely, asleep. There are bottles in the refrigerator. Return in a few minutes." Behind him, the door banged. The sound of his footsteps drifting down the stairs left me motionless in the center of the room. My stomach turned. Everything seemed strange. Why would a parent abandon their child to a stranger? What caused a strong odor? Then, from the rear room, I heard a rustling sound. With my heart thumping in my ears, I moved slowly. The corridor appeared to go on forever. After a moment of hesitation, I pushed open the final door after counting to 3. The window was ajar. The night breeze caused the curtains to flap. The man was standing in the center of the room, but his attire had changed. He had a pacifier hanging from his mouth, a diaper, and a bib on. My blood became icy. "What on earth?" He smiled and spat out the dummy. "Want some milk, baby?" I staggered back. "Feed me," he said. His voice sharpened now. "What the, baby, kill you, my brain," cried out. "Run," I said. But my legs remained immobile. He grabbed a bottle from the refrigerator and pushed it in my direction. I sat and said, "Sit, feed baby," so I was at a loss for what to do. He curled up on my lap like some hideous caricature of a baby sucking voraciously from the bottle, and my hands trembled furiously. Bowl rose up in my throat. Then he was taller than me. His voice fell to a chilly murmur. When I noticed the urine dripping down his leg, I said, "Baby needs a diaper change." "No," I answered as I stood up, with a horrible smile on his face. He grabbed a knife from the counter and said, "I'm leaving." That broke the ice. Baby said, "Change me." He yelled behind me, smashing the blade against the walls as I ran down the hall. Gasping for air, I locked myself in the back room. I glanced around before settling on the crib. There was a little, decomposing child's corpse within. With my scream stuck in my throat, I flung open the window and threw myself outside, slamming on the metal stairway before tearing into the darkness. I took off running. I kept sprinting till I came across the supermarket's lights. My hands shaking, I picked up a basket and called my dad while feigning to shop. When he arrived, I got into the car and pretended nothing had happened. I haven't told him or anyone else until now. Late at night, I occasionally ponder over the deceased youngster and the reason that man feigned to go solely to accomplish that. Additionally, I'm curious if he's still searching for a babysitter. The night everything happened, I was 7 years old. It's odd how certain memories are so clear in your mind that they seem to have happened yesterday. Even after decades have passed, one of those memories that I wish I could forget is this one. One that still makes me feel nauseous whenever I consider it. Things were easy back then. Everyone knew one another, or at least we believed we did, in the small town of Brookdale, where I lived with my parents in a peaceful suburban area. It was the sort of place where people waved from their front porches and left their doors unlocked. That feeling of security and belonging was what made that night's event so horrifying. Kids were still riding bikes up and down the street as the sun started to set on a late spring Friday night, which was warm enough that the air smelled like freshly cut grass. My dad had a company dinner once or twice a year, and my parents were preparing to depart for it whenever someone was promoted or retired. My dad was wearing a suit and tie, and my mom was wearing a long black dress and high heels. While adjusting the collar of my shirt, my mother knelt down in front of me and murmured, "Sweetheart, don't worry. We'll only be gone for a few hours. Tonight, Jenna will be watching you. Be kind to her." I nodded while feigning indifference, but I was actually thrilled. Jenna was someone I liked. I felt unique because she was my elder cousin, who was 17 at the time, calm and laid back. Unlike my parents, she did not pester me. She let me to watch cartoons, play video games on my dad's PlayStation, and stay up late. Just as the doorbell rang, Jenna appeared, dressed in a striped t-shirt and torn jeans, her long brown hair pulled back in an untidy ponytail. She had her phone in one hand and a bottle of nail paint in the other. She ruffled my hair and said, "Hey, Squirt," as she entered. She received the standard rundown from my parents. They were gone in an instant, talking and laughing, as they backed out of the driveway, the sound of their car fading down the street. And then it was sleep, snacks, and the emergency numbers on the refrigerator, when it was quieter and just the two of us. The house seemed larger. Jenna and I sat down on the couch and laughed until our sides ached, while watching SpongeBob reruns. She scrolled through her phone at one point and painted her nails a deep shade of red. I didn't give it much thought until she abruptly said. My head swung toward her, saying, "Hey, I just need to run out real quick, grab something before my boyfriend comes over." "Your boyfriend is coming here." "Calm down," she smiled. "He's just going to stop by for a bit. I'll be back in like 10 minutes, tops. Do you want to come with me or stay here?" I hesitated. I was too focused on my game to notice. "I'll remain cool. Please don't open the door for anyone. No matter what you do. Not even for the Pope." "Like," I chuckled. "All right, swear, assure me." She snatched the spare home key from the counter, gave me a false salute, and left. She hardly noticed the click of the latch behind her. I had already returned to my virtual world and was advancing quickly through the stages. My stomach rumbled at that moment. The bag of chips in the kitchen was calling my name, and I hadn't eaten anything since lunch. I put the game on hold and stood up. I heard it at that point. Knock, knock, knock. 3 jagged edges against the front door. I didn't give it much thought at first. Jenna had to be the one. Perhaps she overlooked something. I opened the door and yanked it open without even looking through the peephole. It wasn't Jenna, though. Our next-door neighbor, Mr. Lawrence, was standing there, tall and lanky, with thinning brown hair and a constant 5 o'clock shadow. He was in his late 30s. He was usually smiling and asking about my parents' days, and he was always friendly. That night, I thought he looked different. His t-shirt was sticking to his chest, like he had just finished jogging, and his face was drenched with perspiration. "Hey there, kiddo," he murmured, trying to make his eyes grin. "Your cousin is where?" I gripped the edge of the door hesitantly and said, "She went to the store." He grinned, but it didn't look right. Too forced, too wide. "How long has she been gone?" "A couple minutes, I guess." He glanced at me and then back down the street. "When will she return?" "I'm not sure. 10 minutes. Something about the way he moved made my stomach turn as he took a step closer. Then he became nearly whispery in his voice. "Put your hand on it." I blinked. "What? Feel it?" His jaw tensed as he repeated, "Or I will inform your parents that you let a stranger in." My thoughts were racing. "What do you touch?" Headlights swept across the driveway at that moment. Jenna's vehicle. She had returned. In a moment, Mr. Lawrence's expression shifted. His smile returned as if nothing had occurred. "Ah, never mind," he muttered hastily as he took a step back. Jenna slammed the door behind her as she exited the car and rushed up the driveway, saying, "Just wanted to make sure you kids were safe." Her gaze shifted from him to me. "Everything okay here?" "Yes," Mr. Lawrence responded, sounding phony as he left. I didn't say anything as Jenna unlocked the door and ushered me inside. "Just checking in. You know how it is these days. Crazy world out there, right?" Jenna answered slowly, her tone stern. "Well, you two have a great night," he remarked, before leaving without another word, heading toward his house. She looked at me as like she wanted to ask me something, but all she said was, "Lock the door this time, okay?" I nodded. My heart continued to race. The remainder of the evening flew by. I made an effort to concentrate on the TV, but all I could think about was his words. "Put your hand on it." What was meant by that? Why was he so furious before Jenna arrived? I didn't tell her. I kept it to myself. I was 7 years old. I had no idea what was proper or improper. I discovered the reality in high school. Years later, Mr. Lawrence was taken into custody and accused of assault and kidnapping. Children were discovered in his basement, locked away. He had gained the trust of their parents and enticed them away from their homes. I felt ill after reading that article. I nearly dropped my phone because my hands were shaking so much. That night was all I could think about. How nearly I was one of those children. The memory still haunts me as an adult. That one terrible sentence, his voice, his expression, "Put your hand on it." This is the most important lesson I took away from that evening. The door should never be opened for anyone. Not even a person you believe to be familiar. Not everything in the world is as it seems. It happened when I was 19, and the memory still makes me shiver. Things were easy back then. After graduating from high school the previous summer, I made the decision to take a year off before attending college. I was residing in a tiny northern Redwood Hollow, a town in Carolina, is the type of place where folks still leave their doors open and everyone waves as they pass you on the street. Due to financial constraints, I took up odd jobs, primarily babysitting. Parents trusted me because I got along well with children. The majority of gigs were simple. Put the child to bed, order pizza, watch TV, and then browse through my phone until the parents return. Nothing threatening or frightening. Until that evening, Mrs. Adler was her name. One Friday afternoon, she called me to let me know that her boss had an urgent need for a babysitter. The pay was $160 for the night, which was double what I usually charge. Although it was secure, she cautioned me that the house was a little out there. Her employer and his spouse didn't want to cancel because they had an urgent occasion to attend. I nearly declined. Her voice sounded nervous, but $160 was difficult to refuse. Thus, at 6:30 p.m. I got into my beat-up Honda Civic and headed toward $146 Briar Creek Road, the address she texted me. I told myself I was being dramatic, but the route name itself sounded sinister. The directions led me past a smashed wooden sign that said Briar Creek, population 203, and out of town for 15 minutes. The pavement then gave way to gravel, and the forest pressed in, a tunnel of winter branches on either side. Out of nowhere, a 2-story farmhouse with a wraparound porch emerged through the trees, its windows gleaming a faint yellow in the twilight. The woods beyond it were engulfed in darkness, with no street lights or neighbors. I parked next to a gleaming black SUV and ascended the groaning stairs. They seemed to have been waiting by the door since it opened almost immediately when I knocked. The mid-40s, well-dressed, anxious energy emanated from Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell, like waves of heat. Mrs. Caldwell had a deep crimson lipstick and a black dress. It appeared as though they had hurried to get ready because Mr. Caldwell's tie was a little off-center. Mrs. Caldwell replied, "Thank you so much for coming, Iris," as she icy-fingered my hand. "No issue," I grinned. "It's nice out here." A lie, but polite. Behind them came their 9-year-old son, Ethan, who was slender and had large brown eyes that gave him a constantly anxious appearance. Mrs. Caldwell knelt down to give him a hug. "You behave for Iris, okay," he said, nodding solemnly while holding a plush wolf. "Mommy and Daddy will be back soon." Then, with her voice lowering a little, Mrs. Caldwell turned to face me and said, "Lock the doors. Don't go outside after dark. If you hear anything weird, call us first, not the cops." Her eyes met mine, and I chuckled nervously, assuming it was a joke, but her expression remained the same, and before I could ask what she meant, they were gone. I was left standing in a too-quiet house with a child who hardly spoke as their SUV roared down the gravel road. It was 7:15 p.m. The house smelled faintly of wood polish and something metallic, possibly from the old pipes, but it was warm and comfortable enough inside, with a large leather couch, a flat-screen TV, and a stone fireplace that hadn't been lit in years. Ethan was sitting on the rug, drawing. I looked over his shoulder and saw intricate drawings of wolves with blazing eyes and sharp teeth in a spiral notebook. "You like wolves? They defend people," he whispered without raising his head in response to my question. "From what?" "From what's out there," I whispered softly, and he paused, pencil hanging over paper. We ate mac and cheese for dinner, and by 9 o'clock, he was in bed with the stuffed wolf clutched to his chest. I left his door open and went downstairs to the living room, where there was an unnatural silence, not even the distant hum of traffic or the chirp of crickets, just dead air pressing against the windows. Trying to sound casual, I texted my boyfriend Ryan to invite him over when he got off work at the gas station. "Bring Dr. Pepper and chips," I added, and he quickly replied, "On my way." Headlights rushed across the porch at 10:17 p.m., and I felt a rush of relief. I mumbled, "Tell me about it," as Ryan entered with arms full of food. "God, Iris, this place is in the middle of nowhere," he remarked, kicking off his boots. "It's really creepy." It felt regular for a while until the front door opened, not subtly, no knock, no jiggle of the doorknob, just the gradual sound of a foolish action movie playing on low level while we cuddled up on the couch. Footsteps, heavy boots on the floorboards, each step echoing in the hollow silence of the house, followed by a dragging groan of wood on wood. Ryan turned off the television, and we stared at each other, frozen. My heart should have been thumping, but it was calm, a strange, eerie calm that was like a fog rolling through my veins. The footsteps became louder as they came down the hallway. I should have screamed when he finally showed up. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man in his mid-40s, dressed in jeans, a faded flannel shirt, and scuffed work boots. His stubble covered his jaw, and his eyes were wide and unblinking, staring at us like deer in headlights. Then the smell hit, heavy, stale cigarette smoke combined with something damp and earthy. Ryan spoke first, his voice calm, almost kind. "Can we help you, sir?" The man's chest rose and fell slowly, and when he spoke, his voice was low, scratchy, like dry leaves scraping concrete. I should have grabbed Ryan's hand and run, but neither of us did. It felt normal, like he belonged. There. He stepped closer and continued. "I'm taking someone. It shouldn't be you." I felt a chill run up my spine and my mouth dry up. "Okay," I muttered. "Don't go into those woods tonight." We just stared. He gave one nod, turned, and walked back. Down the hallway, the front door creaked open, closed, and then there was stillness. For what seemed like an hour, we didn't move, didn't talk, just gazed at the empty doorway. At last, Ryan murmured, in a voice that was almost audible above, a whisper, "What the hell just happened?" I swallowed hard. I'm not sure of it. At some point, exhaustion took over, and we fell asleep on the couch, wrapped in a thin blanket, pretending the world outside didn't exist. Morning light saved us. The Caldwells returned home at around 8 a.m. We checked every lock and window, sat back down, and tried to convince ourselves it was nothing a crazy local, a drunk hunter, something. Ryan and I drove away in quiet after a year later, when the news emerged that a hiker had discovered human bones deep in the woods of Briar Creek. We told them what had happened, and their faces were devoid of color. Mr. Caldwell muttered something about strays and weirdos before escorting Ethan upstairs. I don't know who that man was, what he meant, or why we felt so at ease when he walked in like he owned the place. But sometimes late at night, I hear his voice in my head. "I'm taking someone." Then another set and another. 5 victims in all. No names were released, just the same eerie words on every local broadcast. Briar Creek is still under investigation. The Harris family had 2 boys, Liam, who was 7, and Oliver, who had just turned 5. I was 13 when it happened, and I swear to this day, I've never felt fear like that night. It began like any other babysitting job. I was one of those kids in church that everyone trusted at the time, quiet, responsible, the kind of girl that people didn't hesitate to leave their kids with. It was supposed to be easy that night. Mr. and Mrs. Harris had a late church function and asked me to keep the boys until around 2 o'clock in the morning. They offered to pay, but I told them not to, worrying because I thought I was doing a nice thing. The boys were sweet, energetic, but well behaved. The Harris family lived on the bottom floor of their apartment complex, which was in a quiet part of town. One of those older 2-story buildings with 4 units per section. The layout was straightforward when you walked in, 2 bedrooms down, the short hall, a bathroom near the front door, a small kitchen to the left, and a cozy living room to the right with a sliding glass door that opened onto a tiny patio. I was that kind of kid, always wanting to help out. The boys were jumping off the walls, but after a few rounds of gouache and some mac and cheese, they calmed down, and by 10:30 they were sound asleep in their shared bedroom. I was also exhausted, but I had homework, so I stayed up at the dining table and scribbled away under the dim yellow light. The apartment was dead quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator. At the time, I didn't give that much thought because I was just a kid trying to feel grown up. Before smartphones were glued to our hands, I remember looking at the clock at 10:07 a.m. and yawning so hard that my eyes watered. The Harrises had an old DVD-VHS combo with a small stack of movies, no TV, and no phone to scroll on. After finishing my homework, I put The Land Before Time on VHS, sank into the couch, and let the glow of the screen lull me. I slept off at one point, and then the knocking began. It was gentle at first, a kind little tap on the front door. Knock, knock, knock. I jolted awake, dumbfounded, thinking, oh, they're home early. However, I then recalled the Harrises had a key. Why would they knock? I remained motionless on the couch, the room only illuminated by the flickering television. The knocking continued, louder this time. I felt sick to my stomach. I looked toward the door, but it was beyond of my line of sight. With the exception of the movie playing softly, the apartment was quiet once more when the voice of woman's soft, sweet, almost singing voice arrived. "Oh, honey, that won't help you." My entire body tensed, and I initially thought I was dreaming, but it turned out to be real as it strayed from the direction of the sliding glass door behind me. I slowly turned my head to see that the blinds were open, and that someone was standing outside. I could only make out a short, wide silhouette that was dimly lit by the orange glow of a parking lot light, and that person was standing motionless, facing the glass. I don't remember screaming. I just remember moving. The boy was still asleep when I slammed the door and locked it, and my hands were shaking so badly that I could hardly push the dresser across the floor to barricade the door. I squatted by the window, holding onto the baseball bat as if it were the only thing holding me to safety, breathing quickly and shallowly, my heart pounding so loudly that it drowned out everything else. And then the shadow fell across the window. A figure darkened the glass as it pressed against the boy's room. And then there was the knocking hard, aggressive, the kind of pounding that makes the glass shudder, and the woman's voice broke. "Come on, dearie, I won't hurt you, please. Just come out." When the knocking increased in intensity, the boys woke up, both of them screaming and crying. Oliver clung to my arm, wailing. Liam kept asking what was going on, and I had no answers. I wanted to throw up because I couldn't understand why a woman, some stranger, would be outside at 2 o'clock in the morning talking like that. I kept whispering, "It's okay," because I didn't have a phone either, no cell, no cordless in the house, no way to call for help. "It's all right." The pounding stopped, and then there was silence, followed by slow, methodical footsteps crunching on the patio gravel back into the living room, even though every nerve in my body knew it wasn't. Nothing occurred for maybe 30 seconds, and then the front door banged, banged, banged. "Let me in, sweetheart," the voice sung, and I almost fainted with fear. The boys were crying so loudly that I could hardly hear myself, and my thoughts were racing. Should I flee? Break the window? But where would we go? The patio led to a parking lot. I listened to the door, wondering if she had anyone else with her. Then I heard a man's voice again, deep and angry. "Hey, who the hell are you?" I screamed, pulling the boys closer, believing the woman had entered. I pushed the dresser back, yanked the door open, and practically fell into the hallway when I heard Mr. Harris's familiar voice calling my name. The parents were there, both of them, wide-eyed and panicked. What happened? Mrs. Harris took the boys in her arms, holding them tightly as they sobbed into her shirt. I was hardly able to speak, so I just kept saying, "Someone was here. There was a person outside." When the police arrived, they investigated the area and found nothing, no footprints, no evidence of forced entry, but one thing: the bushes by the patio had been chopped and trampled, as if someone had cleared a path to get close. The police reported it as attempted trespassing and concluded that it was most likely the work of an unstable individual from the nearby complex. It didn't help. I babysat for the Harrises once more before they moved out, and I never did it again. Years later, whenever I hear the door knock, especially late at night, I still get that same chill because I know what I saw and heard, and I can still hear that voice in my nightmares occasionally, whispering from the dark, "Dearie, hurry up. I promise not to harm you." I was 15 years old at the time, old enough to believe I could handle anything, but still young enough to be naive. I never imagined a simple babysitting job could ruin my life, but it did. Years later, I can still feel my hands shaking when I think back on that night. People always assume horror comes in the form of monsters or masked killers, but the real monsters were the face of a child. The majority of the families in our small neighborhood trusted me because I had a reputation for being responsible and good with kids, and I had been doing it for almost a year without any issues. The families I usually worked for were kind, and their kids behaved well. Sure, there were occasional tantrums, but that was just the normal chaos of childhood. I actually enjoyed it most nights. Babysitting was my way of earning extra money on the weekends. Then came the Croffords. Mr. and Mrs. Crawford were decent people, courteous, even warm in their own aloof, stiff manner. And they had 2 children, Emily, a sweet little girl of 5 with pigtails and a princess dress obsession, and her 10-year-old brother, Lucas. God, where do I even begin? Lucas had a habit of staring not at the TV or out the window, but at people, including me, and he would lock eyes and maintain the stare without blinking, as if he was studying something no one else could see. At first, I dismissed this as shyness, but something about him gave me uneasy from the first moment I met him. He wasn't loud or hyper like most kids, but he was quiet to quiet. When I brought it up, Mrs. Crawford laughed it off, saying, "Boys will be boys," with a nervous laugh. "I wish I had trusted my gut instead of laughing along," she said. But then I noticed the things he'd do when he thought no one was watching: hurting the family cat, ripping the heads off Emily's dolls, drawing strange things on scraps of paper, sticking people with knives through their chests, and figures with X's for eyes. On Friday evening, I was upstairs in my room when my mom answered the phone, and when I walked downstairs, she said, "You're watching the Crawford kids tonight. They are in dire need of you." At the last minute, their other sitter cancelled. I tried to argue that I had plans to eat snacks and binge watch a show in solitude, but Mom wouldn't have it. She pointed out that the Crawfords made a good living, and that it was just from 5 to 10 p.m. The weather was gloomy all day, and by the time I arrived at their house, sheets of rain were falling, the kind of storm where the wind howls through the trees and the air feels electric. Mrs. Crawford met me at the door, her heels clicking against the hardwood as she hurried to finish getting ready. That was all. I remember the weather clearly. Mrs. Crawford hurriedly handed me the house keys, said, "You know the drill," kissed Emily on the forehead, and called out to Lucas. Mr. Crawford was already in the car, honking impatiently, and Emily ran up and hugged my legs, smiling as usual. Lucas stood at the end of the hallway, just watching. The first few of hours weren't too bad. Emily and I colored pictures in the living room while the rain beat on the windows, and Lucas remained upstairs in his room. He didn't respond. He didn't even move, and suddenly they were gone, leaving me alone with them. To be honest, I was appreciative of that. I prepared mac and cheese for Emily at 7:30 and put a plate for Lucas on the counter, but he didn't respond. When I called him down for dinner, the hallway was dark, with Emily's nightlight plugged in at the end, providing the only light. I called again, my voice echoing up the stairs, but nothing came. I groaned and ascended the steps. His bedroom door was closed, so I knocked lightly and said, "Dinner's ready." His room was completely dark, the curtains were drawn, and the air was warm and thick. "Lucas," the sound coming from within wasn't a word. It was a deep hum that sounded almost like a growl. My gut grew tense. "All right," I murmured, stepping back and shutting the door. "Food's downstairs if you want it." I kept Emily in the dark. She didn't notice anything, because she was too busy throwing a tea party for her stuffed animals. Emily was drowsy by 8, so I prepared her for bed. After brushing her teeth and reading her a tale, we put her to bed. She dozed off almost immediately. The place felt different when I returned downstairs. To still, that quiet that causes you to hold your breath. Without even noticing, my phone had no service because the wire had been destroyed by the storm outdoors. Fantastic. I put on my headphones and settled down on the couch to kill time. A huge error. The next thing I recall, waking up to the sensation that I must have fallen asleep at some point. There was something in my throat. I froze when I opened my eyes. Standing above me with his face just inches from mine, Lucas was beaming in a way that no child should ever smile. He had broad, unblinking eyes. He also had a kitchen knife in his hands. I was unable to move or talk. There was a slight sting to the cool blade as it dug into my skin. "What are you doing, Lucas?" My voice broke into a faint murmur. He applied more pressure to the knife. A warm fluid trickled down my neck. Then, almost singing, he continued, "I want to see what's inside. I became terrified. I felt a rush of pure adrenaline. With everything I had, I pushed him away and ran away. My feet hardly made contact with the ground. I sprinted toward the main door. I heard him laugh behind me, his voice high-pitched and cracked like static. I heard something soft and wet hitting the floor above as I fumbled with the latch, my hands slick with perspiration. Then there was a scream, the feline. Emily, I thought foolishly as terror gnawed at my chest. I was unable to abandon her. I snuck upstairs with a baseball bat from the hallway closet, my pulse thumping so rapidly that I believed it might blow up. Now the door to Lucas's room stood ajar, and I shall always remember what I saw inside. With his blood-soaked pajamas, Lucas sat cross-legged in front of his closet. What remained of the family cat sat in his lap, its contents leaking out like a hideous scientific experiment. He tilted his head as if it were all a joke, grinning as he peered up at me. "Your turn," he said in a whisper. He then made a lunge. Then I swung the bat wildly, hitting something, I think him, before tearing down the stairs and out the door into the storm. I didn't stop running until I saw the glowing sign of the police station a block away. The Crawfords pressed charges, at my parents' insistence, but I don't remember every detail after that. I only remember flashes, the knife glinting in the dim light, the sound of my own screams, and the searing pain in my shoulder as the blade sank in. I moved away as quickly as possible, 1,000 miles away, changed my number, and left everything behind after Lucas was taken to a juvenile psychiatric facility. I thought that distance would make me feel safer again, but it didn't. 4 months, I slept with the lights on, waking up in a cold sweat and hearing his laugh in the dark. Made me cringe. Even at 20 years old, I can't be in a room with a child by myself without feeling that blade against my throat again. People tell me that Lucas was just a kid, but kids shouldn't look at you that way or like killing. Lucas wasn't just a kid, he was something else. And worst of all, sometimes late at night, I wonder if he ever really stayed in that facility. Or if I wake up one day to hear that laugh again. I never imagined that babysitting would permanently alter my perspective on children. At 16, I wasn't the most outgoing person at school. I wasn't unpopular, but I also wasn't someone people wanted to hang out with on the weekends. My life was straightforward: video games, late-night anime, and avoiding failing pre-calculus. I never considered babysitting, not because I didn't like children, but rather because it wasn't my type of job. I always thought I'd work in a small tech shop or maybe fold clothes at the mall. However, life doesn't exactly wait for your preferences, and that's how I ended up at my sister's house that weekend. My older sister Rachel had 2 daughters, Emily, who was 9, and Claire, who was 6, based on my memories of her adoring family, get-togethers and holidays. They were sweet girls, courteous, happy, the kind of kids who giggled over cartoons and drew unicorns on napkins. Since it sounded simple enough, sit around, keep them fed, make sure they don't break bones, and earn some quick cash. I didn't hesitate when my mom told me Rachel needed someone to watch them while she went on a 2-day business trip. What's the worst that could happen? The night before, when I packed my laptop and an extra sweater for the weekend, I whispered to myself, I had no idea that by Sunday night, I would swear off babysitting and possibly kids for life. When I arrived at Rachel's house, she was hurrying around in heels, grabbing her luggage, and giving me last-minute instructions. Dinner is in the fridge. Bedtime is at 9 sharp. No scary movies, she said, pointing a manicured finger at me. And, for heaven's sake, don't let Emily have more than 1 soda or she keep you up. Rachel's house was in Willow Creek, a quiet suburban neighborhood with pastel-colored houses, symmetrical lawns, and neighbors who waved when you drove by. I grinned and said, "Calm down, Rah. I understand. The girls are easy, but they've been watching a lot of strange stuff on YouTube lately. So if they start talking gibberish, ignore it, she said, reaching for her purse. They are only children. That remark stayed with me. Strange things, I dismissed it as Rachel gave the kids a quick embrace and a kiss on the top of their heads. Like what? DIY slime videos, makeup tutorials, be good for Uncle Nate, she whispered, then gave me a look that screamed, or else, and left. The girls were so full of energy that they ran into the living room. Is there a movie we can watch? Claire let out a squeal. Yeah, something spooky, smiled Emily. I said, no spooky stuff, and put my suitcase down on the couch. Emily rolled her eyes like a teenager when your mother stated, PG only, okay, but I like scary things better. PG, I said firmly. Go wash up now. Go wash up now. I'll reheat the meal. They complied and vanished down the hallway while giggling. At first, everything appeared to be normal. It was a routine dinner. They'll have mac and cheese, and I'll have leftover pizza. After we finished viewing an animated film, I got them asleep by 9 o'clock. Do you believe in forever life? And wouldn't it be cool if no one ever died? Were some of the queries Emily repeated. I dismissed it with a laugh, assuming she was having a strange philosophical moment. I informed her that everyone dies at some point, attempting to sound intelligent. She said, not if you make a deal, a contract with a strong person. As bewildered as God, I gazed at her. Not God. Her lips formed a tiny smile, and I became uncomfortable for the first time. However, children do say strange things all the time, don't they? I dismissed it and proceeded downstairs to prepare for my math test. I heard footsteps above me at around midnight. I assumed that one of the girls was in need of water. I yelled out to get back to bed. Quiet. I listened and waited, but I heard nothing more. Both girls were asleep, or at least acting like they were, when I checked. I went to bed on the couch and ignored it. There was mayhem the following morning. Cartoons, pancakes, and bickering over the larger dish. Everything felt normal again. For a time, I browsed through my phone while the girls played in the backyard. I scowled, stood up, and peered out the window when I heard Emily say, we need more red stuff. Claire responded, there's ketchup in the fridge. They were using sticks to draw something in the soil while crouching in the grass. I froze when I stepped outside. They weren't only sketching. Strange symbols were being carved inside a circle. I questioned, what are you doing? Emily glanced up nonchalantly. I forced a joke and remarked, it's for a game. Looks more like something from a horror movie, I added. She gave a shrug. We're only practicing, Claire said naively. Practicing what? To keep her there forever. Slowly, I asked. Emily wants her mother to stay with them forever. Claire clarified. Emily glared at her so intensely that I felt sick to my stomach. Claire, stop talking. I urged them to halt and enter. Emily gave me a chilly, stubborn look as if she knew something I didn't, but they complied. By nightfall, I was worn out. It was more difficult than I anticipated to keep two rambunctious toddlers occupied throughout the day. They pleaded that since it's more enjoyable down there, they should play in the basement. I grudgingly accepted, reasoning that it would give me some quiet time to study. A huge error. I was bent over my calculus notes at the kitchen table when I last had a clear memory of anything. I must have fallen asleep since my wrists were tied behind my back. My head was pounding, and my mouth was dry when I woke up. The basement was where I was, like a freight train. Panic struck me. The rope pricked my skin and shackled my ankles as well. Standing a few steps away, Emily and Claire gazed at me with looks that weren't appropriate for children. While fighting against the restraints, I screamed, "What the hell is this?" Emily's head cocked. Ignoring me, she turned to face Claire and said, "You weren't supposed to wake up yet. Untie me right now. Light the candles." When I saw what was around me, my blood froze. Red ketchup was used to create a circle on the concrete floor. There were candles at each location, and a book of some kind revealed a page filled with symbols. This isn't funny, Emily. Her gaze met mine. It's serious. We require a soul. According to the book, it must be someone who is not related by blood. With my heart hammering against my ribs, I gazed at her. How on earth did you obtain the book? She gave a small smile. Years ago, Mom received it from a friend. In the attic, I discovered it. Claire muttered uneasily. I no longer enjoy this, Emily. Emily's voice was sharp enough to make me wince, but she yelled, "Shut up. We will never die if we do this." With the ropes digging into my flesh, I fought harder. Listen to me, Emily. This is crazy. You'll end up behind bars. Your mother will. After that, everything is a haze of fear, she remarked calmly, and Mom won't care if we're gods. Claire lit one candle, then another, and Emily began chanting in a low, rhythmic voice in some jumbled language. Then, miraculously, the family cat jumped onto a shelf and knocked over a lit candle, rolling across the floor and setting a curtain on fire. In a matter of seconds, flames flew upward, the smoke alarm blared, the girls shrieked, Emily dropped the book, and the girls cried. "Untie me," I yelled, I said, and Claire hurried over with trembling hands, fumbling with the knots as the fire spread quickly, smoke choking the air. I ripped the ropes off my ankles and grabbed both children, dragging them upstairs as soon as my hands were free. Before we could get outside, the entire basement was engulfed, and neighbors were already rushing over to call 911. I stood there in the freezing night air, my heart pounding, my lungs burning, and my heart racing as we watched the house catch fire. The fire department declared it an accident, citing defective wiring in the basement. The police interrogated me 4 hours, and the girls told a scripted story about playing with candles. When I claimed that they had tied me up for a ritual, no one believed me. Rachel came home furious the following day, screaming at me, accusing me of being irresponsible, and forbidding me from ever again being near her children. My parents believed her, and I never saw Emily or Claire again. I'm 28 years old, married, and living 3 states away, yet I still wake up some nights smelling smoke and hearing Emily's voice murmur, "Not God." I know what I saw, and I know what they tried to do. I've heard that they moved over their strange phase and became typical teens. When I first realized that babysitting wasn't as simple as everyone made it seem, I was 17 years old. I wasn't the kind of person who enjoyed taking chances. My life was fairly straightforward: school, part-time jobs at the neighborhood coffee shop, and spending time with my best friend, Mia. I had done babysitting for neighbors and family friends a dozen times before, without any problems, and that October night I agreed to watch my cousin's 9-year-old son, Tyler. Tyler was a good kid, quiet, and fascinated by dinosaurs and video games. A quiet house, a good Wi-Fi connection, and no curfew sounded like an easy night. The house was in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, a 2-story colonial with a large yard and an old oak tree out front that cast eerie shadows when the wind blew. His parents, Emma and Greg, were at the hospital because Emma had gone into labor with their second child, and I was honestly excited. Emma had asked me weeks ago, so I thought, why not? When I got there, everything seemed fine. Tyler was playing on his tablet in the living room. The dog, a chunky golden retriever named Max, was relaxing on his bed in the corner, and Emma, who always joked that she wanted to remodel because old houses have too much personality being her nice way of saying weird noises, drafty rooms, and creaky floors, hugged me. Looking tired, but happy, they thanked me about 20 times before they left, and Greg carried her hospital bag out to the car. Emma said before she left, "Make sure Max gets in his crate after his last bathroom break. Oh, and don't freak out if you hear the pipes knocking. This house does that sometimes." I laughed it off, and it didn't worry me in the least. We watched a movie together, and Tyler ate the pizza Emma left in the refrigerator. The evening went smoothly, and at 8:45 I reminded him to brush his teeth and get ready for bed. I was surprised that he didn't protest, since most kids detested bedtime. "Night, Tyler," I whispered, tucking him in. His bedroom was upstairs, next to the master bedroom where Max's kennel was, and he muttered, "Night," already yawning. The door to the master bedroom was open, and I could see the box set up in the corner. I let Max out one more time, then locked the door, placed him in his crate, and turned off the lights upstairs. Except for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs, the house was silent. I took my laptop and sat down on the living room couch, social media browsing, YouTube, and some music. It seemed like any other night. The initial sound, my ears heard it slam at about 10:30, a door that was loud enough to cause me to stop watching the movie. Although my heart leapt, I rationalized that it was most likely Tyler using the restroom. Children are constantly awake, aren't they? Then, after roughly 30 seconds, bang a second door more forcefully. I went cold. It wasn't typical. Why, if it was Tyler? Would he do that when slamming doors? What a peaceful child he was. I strained my ears and waited. Then it occurred once again. Slam. In within 2 minutes, 3 doors were opened. Something didn't feel right. With every nerve in my body on high alert, I slowly got to my feet. The stairs stood calm and dark before me. I yelled out to Tyler, my voice trembling a little. "Not much. Is everything all right up there?" No response. The house's quiet creak settling was the sole sound. I switched on the flashlight and reached for my phone. I began climbing the steps, my hands slippery with perspiration. Max lost his mind halfway up. It was a punch to the gut. Frantic, deep barking from the master bedroom. He shook his cage, if he were attempting to escape. I muttered, "Max, hey, calm down," as if that would help, but the barking got worse the closer I went. Then everything halted as I got to the top step. Utter silence. The noise was worse than the abrupt silence. I could hear my own rapid, shallow breathing. First, I took a quick look around Tyler's room. He had his door open, stretched out with his blanket half on the floor. He was sound sleeping and breathing steadily. I felt a wave of relief, but it was flimsy, like tissue paper, and it was about to tear because I still needed to look around the hall. Next was the main bedroom. Beyond the bed, my light sliced through the carpet to Max's kennel. He continued to sit inside and gaze at the open closet door. The closet door was latched, as was the crate. I had no doubt that it had been closed. Sooner, the sound is back. I didn't believe it, so I gently retreated while whispering, "It's fine. It's fine." I heard it as I got to the stairs. Sprinting. Behind me, I heard heavy footsteps pounding down the hallway. I twitched violently in my throat. There was nobody in the hall. Next, slam. The guest bedroom door closed with such force that the walls trembled. I ran down the steps. My life's longest night. It was horrible for the next 2 hours. Each time I attempted, something else happened, and I had to tell myself it was just the old home. Like a dresser being pulled, furniture scrapes. Like someone dropping huge boxes. There are gentle thuds overhead, faint murmurs that I was unable to hear. "Hey, everything's fine. How's the baby?" I texted Emma, but I kept it a secret since I wasn't sure what to respond. "Hey, there's a chance someone broke into your house or it's haunted." Not sure which. Neither did I call the police. I'd want to explain why. Perhaps I didn't want to appear foolish in the event that it was insignificant. Perhaps fear simply paralyzed me. At last, at 1:30 a.m., everything came to a halt. There was utter silence in the house. Nothing, no slamming, no footsteps. I didn't get any sleep. I waited for the sun to rise while gripping a kitchen knife on the couch. I attempted to joke it off when Emma and Greg got home, saying something like, "Haha, your house makes some creepy noises." But Emma just gave me a look and said something that chilled me to the bone. The casual statement, "Oh, Greg didn't tell you," came from her. The previous owner passed away in this house, an older man. "We hear things to sometimes, and we assume it's just him," she replied, as if discussing the weather. I told my mother what had transpired later that week. She did not chuckle. She informed me that Jenna, my oldest cousin, once expressed her dislike of being by herself in that house because she constantly felt like someone was observing her. I never again babysat there. Emma once said that the attic was connected to the neighbor's house, but I'm still not sure if it was a ghost or if someone really passed through. In any case, I am certain of one thing. That night, I was not by myself. I was 13. That was the night I had a complete change. Our parents had organized a large gathering at a tavern on the outskirts of town at the beginning of the summer. They planned to stay at a hotel because they weren't just going out for a drink. On the phone, I overheard my mother giggling about how they needed a vacation from the turmoil. Naturally, the commotion was caused by the 10 or so of us children spending the night together under one roof. They were all people I knew. Since before we were even born, our parents had been friends. We grew up together, attending lake excursions, birthday celebrations, and cookouts. They all presumably decided that it was okay to leave me in charge because of that familiarity. I was the youngest at 4 and the eldest at 13. The majority of the others were in the 8 to 10 range. It was daunting to watch so many children at once, but the lure was the extra money. To be honest, I was a little proud that they had faith in me. The Millers owned the large 3-story mansion, which was situated behind a wooded area, and at the edge of a cul-de-sac. Ethan was 9 years old, and Chloe was 11. It didn't feel weird, because we had all been there many times, not initially. Anyhow, 4:30 p.m, they went in a flurry of laughing and perfume, their car engines fading down the street, the parents lining up at the door, kissing foreheads and delivering last-minute advice such, "Don't stay up too late and no running in the house." I closed the door behind me and faced the crowd. "All right," I said with a hand clap. The place was in a state of chaos within minutes, with kids running up and down the stairs, fighting over which video game to play, and 2 of them chasing each other with couch pillows. I was exhausted by 6:30, but I was able to get them into the kitchen for pasta. Dinner at 7, until then, no fighting. And if anyone breaks anything, I'm telling your parents, they hardly listened. After dinner, there was the inevitable sugar rush. One child scraped his knee after tripping on a rug. Another split his lip trying to slide down the banister, and I ran back and forth like a referee, cleaning cuts and muttering to myself that this wasn't worth $20. We sat around the enormous dining table, the noise deafening but strangely comforting. It felt normal, familiar. They began winding down by 11:30, so I carried the smaller ones upstairs one by one and put them in sleeping bags I had laid out in the kids' rooms, half in Chloe's and half in Ethan's. By midnight, the only sounds in the house were the faint drone of crickets outside and the hum of the refrigerator. I sat down on the couch downstairs, earbuds in, and browsed through my phone when Chloe showed up, pale and standing at the bottom of the stairs in her unicorn pajamas. Her voice was shaking. "Hey," I said, taking out an earbud. "You okay?" I scowled. "What do you mean?" "Something keeps hitting my window," she continued. "Like pebbles or something." It happened twice. The bedrooms were on the 3rd floor, and her eyes darted toward the staircase as if she was scared to go back up. Who the hell could throw something that high? I tried to seem cool as I said, "Stay here. I'll check it out." The first thing I saw as I entered her room was how serene it appeared, with the moonlight spilling on faces that were sleeping. I went back downstairs to find Chloe curled up on the couch, chewing her thumbnail. "That's okay," I told her. "Nothing's there, probably just the wind." She nodded slowly, but her eyes didn't seem convinced. I waited, listening, but there was nothing, no sound, no movement, just my own pulse thudding in my ears. Maybe she imagined it. Maybe it was the wind. A muffled scream came from the garage, and my stomach fell. I ran heart-pounding toward the door, and the garage was dimly lit by the one overhead bulb, with shadows extending across the floor like claws. There, a man in black was dragging Chloe out through the open garage door, his gloved hand clamping over her mouth as her legs kicked wildly and her heels scraped the concrete. "Hey," my voice cracked, shrill and useless. The man didn't stop. He didn't even look at me. I spun in circles, panicking. Weapon, there. I grabbed a metal fire poker that was resting against the fireplace tools by the door with such force that my hands hurt. I swung with all my strength, and the poker struck the back of his knee, causing him to collapse with a cry, while Chloe tumbled loose. "Run." I sprinted outside barefoot, the chilly grass burning my feet. The trees behind the house quickly buried them, but I followed up, my adrenaline making me reckless. I yelled, and she stumbled to her feet, crying, and I pushed her in the direction of the home. I should have beaten him once more to finish him off. Instead, I froze for too long, my mind spinning with fear, and then I ran, pulling Chloe by the arm, and slammed the garage door behind us. I locked all the windows and doors, and my hands trembled so badly that I dropped the keys twice. My first instinct was to call the police, but I panicked because I was afraid of getting caught for leaving the garage open, and I was afraid that my parents would never trust me again. Stupid thinking. So, instead of calling, I heard Chloe talking to her upstairs to keep quiet. The children had woken up and were rubbing their eyes, so I lied and told them to go back to sleep. Chloe clung to me on the couch downstairs till she eventually dozed off. The sun shone through the blinds as if nothing had happened, and the other children were already up, playing, laughing, completely unaware. I went to the garage to make sure nothing had been stolen, and everything appeared normal except for one thing. I didn't sleep at all. I sat there in the dark, staring at the front door, every creak in the house making my skin crawl. He had been inside after I closed the garage, so I never told Chloe or the parents that we were safe. I stuffed the paper into my pocket and hoped that no one would ever ask why I looked pale when they got home. The paper was taped to the inside of the sliding door, and it read, "Revenge," big black letters scrolled across it. Even now, I have no idea who that man was, why Chloe, why that house, what revenge meant, and sometimes I can still hear the muffled scream coming from the garage. I wonder if I won't be quick enough the next time. The first time I ever babysat for money, I was 15 years old, and it wasn't supposed to be a big deal, just a Saturday night. I'd done a lot of free babysitting for my cousins before, so when Mrs. Lambert from down the street asked me to watch her kids, I thought, why not? A little extra money sounded great. The Lamberts lived in a nice 2-story house in a cul-de-sac about 10 minutes from mine, and they had 2 kids, a 7-year-old named Lucas and a 4-year-old sister named Mia. I didn't know them well, but I remembered them as sweet children. When their mother picked me up, I remember her smiling at me through the rearview mirror, her lipstick flawless even in the last of the sunshine, saying, "Thank you again, honey, and we won't be out till late." The job was easy. Feed them supper, play a bit, and put them to bed by 9 o'clock. At the latest, 1 at midnight. No problem, I said. The Lambert house looked cozy, though, with warm yellow light spilling from the windows and Lucas peeking through the curtains as if he had been waiting for me all day. I thought that was the whole story, but looking back now, that night changed everything about how I see people, how I see safety. The street was quiet when we pulled into their driveway, and every house was dark except for one porch light across the way. The inside smelled like vanilla candles and something faintly sweet, like cookies. Her husband came down the stairs, jangling car keys, tall, clean-cut, wearing a button-up and cologne that hit me before he spoke. The kids were shy at first, hanging close to their mom's legs while she gave me the rundown. Dinner's in the fridge, bedtime at 9 o'clock, emergency numbers on the fridge, pretty standard stuff. "Are you sure you're good here?" he questioned, staring directly into my eyes. "Yeah," I said. The kids warmed up quickly, and we had mac and cheese. "I babysit a lot," he said. Nodding, he smiled, but something about the way his eyes lingered on me made my stomach twist. "It's not a big deal. Just a second too long." They soon went. They were easy to handle, sweet and giggly. We sat down to watch Toy Story on the couch at around 8 o'clock. Mia dozed off in the middle, curled up on my lap, and Lucas made it to the credits before yawning so much that his eyes watered. "Badeem," I whispered. They didn't even argue. I carried Mia upstairs, while Lucas trudged behind me, half asleep. It was quiet after that, almost too quiet, so I went back downstairs, texted their mom that everything was fine, and then scrolled through my phone for a while. The house felt different with the kids asleep, bigger somehow, and every creak in the walls made me look up. Their rooms were side by side at the end of the hall, pink for Mia and blue for Lucas. I tucked them in, turned on their night lights, and left the doors cracked just like their mom said. Around 10:30, I heard a faint tapping sound, like fingernails, on glass, and I froze, listening with my phone in hand. The sound came from the kitchen window, and I told myself it was the wind, tree branches, or something else. But when I slowly entered the room with my heart racing, I noticed that the blinds were down, and I swear I saw them move as if someone had just released their hold. I stared at the window for a full minute, trying not to breathe too loudly, and then I backed away, got the house phone, and checked the back door lock, which was secure. I was almost positive I had imagined it, but then I heard another sound, a soft creak upstairs, and my instinct told me to stay put. Make a phone call, however. The children were up there. If the stairs creaked beneath my feet, the hallway was dark, with only a lamp by the window for light, and I stopped outside Mia's door first. I pushed it open, empty, the blankets on the floor, if she had climbed out of bed, and my throat constricted as I grabbed a kitchen knife, my hands shaking so badly I could hardly hold it properly. I muttered, "Mia." There was no response, so I went to check Lucas's room, which was also empty. His nightlight was glowing in the corner, but the bed was cold. Then I heard slow, deliberate footsteps coming from the master bedroom at the other end of the hall, and I approached the sound with a knife grasp. The door was half open, and I could see the end of the large bed with the shadows changing on the wall. Then I heard a low, raspy voice. Not a kid. "Shh, you're okay." I pushed the door fully, and a tall, bent guy with wild hair and a filthy jacket, and he was guiding Lucas toward the sliding glass door that led to the balcony with his hands on his shoulders. Everything froze for a moment, and then he moved, faster than I could have imagined, yanking the door open, pushing Lucas outside, and vaulting after him like an animal. "Stop!" I yelled and lunged. I took Lucas's arm as the man attempted to drag him over the railing, and for a moment we were both clinging to him, me yelling, Lucas sobbing. The man growling like a monster from a nightmare before he released his grip, but not because he gave up, but rather because he took Mia, whom I didn't even see until he had her, tiny, sobbing, clutched against his chest as the police arrived quickly, but not quickly enough. Search teams, dogs, and helicopters found nothing. No footprints, no broken branches, no trace of Mia. It has been 8 years since he vaulted over the balcony and vanished into the trees. I will never forget the sound of her screaming as he ran, or how the darkness engulfed them completely. I no longer babysit. I can't even pass a sliding glass door without checking the lock 3 times. They never caught him. Mrs. Lambert moved away after her husband departed, and I get nightmares. Late at night, I occasionally wonder if he's still living in the woods, keeping an eye on houses and waiting for the next time someone like me makes a mistake, and occasionally When the wind perfectly shakes the windows, I promise her cry is still audible to me.